Friends, this is applied software project management. In that, we are learning the software requirements. The software requirements are documentation that completely describes the behavior that is required of the software before the software is designed, built, and tested. The requirements analyst or business analyst build software requirement specification through requirements elicitation. The interviews with the user, stakeholders, and anyone else who perspective needs to be taken into account during the design, development, and testing of the software. Observation of the users at work, distribution of discussion summaries to verify the data gathered in interviews. The discussion summary is as follows. The requirement analyst can use a discussion summary to summarize information gathered during elicitation and validate it through a review. Notes gathered during the elicitation should fit into the discussion summary template. The discussion summary outline can serve as a guide for a novice requirement analyst in leading interviews and meetings. These are the discussion summary outline where suppose first is project background, the purpose of project, scope of project, other backward informations. Suppose next one is perspectives. Who will use the system? Who can provide input about the system? Project objectives, knows business rules, system information and or diagrams, assumptions and dependencies, design and implementation constraints. Fourth one is risk, known future enhancements, references, open, unresolved or TBD issues. Suppose there is a use cases. A use case is a description of a specific interaction that a user may have with the system. Use cases are deceptively simple tools for describing the functionality of the software. Use cases do not describe any internal working of the software, nor do they explain how that software will be implemented. They simply show how the steps that the user follows to use the software to do this work. All of the ways that the users interact with the software can be described in this manner. Here are the functional requirements. The functional requirements defines the outward behavior required of the software project. The goal of the requirement is to communicate the needed behavior in as clear and unambiguous a manner as possible. The behavior in the requirement can contain lists, bullets, equations, pictures, references to external documents, and any other material that will help the reader understand what need to be implemented. The non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements define characteristics of the software which do not change its behavior. Users have implicit expectations about how well the software will work. These characteristics include how easy the software is to use, how quickly it executes, how reliable it is, and how well it behaves when unexpected conditions arise. The non-functional requirements define these aspects about the system. The non-functional requirements are sometimes referred to as non-behavioral requirements or software quality attributes. Now, the software requirement specification. The software requirement specification represents a complete description of the behavior of the software to be developed. The SRS includes set of use cases that describe all of the interactions that the user will have with the software. All of the functional requirements necessary to define the internal working of the software, calculation, technical details, data manipulation and processing, and other specific functionality that shows how the use cases are to be satisfied. Non-functional requirements which impose constraints on the design or implementation, such as performance requirements, quality standards, or design constraints. Now, requirement versus design. Many people have difficulty understanding the difference between scope, requirement, and design. Scope demonstrates the need of the organization and is documented in a vision and scope document. Requirement document the behavior of the software that will satisfy those needs. Design shows how those requirements will be implemented technically. Change control. The change control is a method for implementing only those changes that are worth pursuing and for preventing unnecessary or overly costly changes from derailing the project. The change control is an agreement between the project team and the managers that are responsible for decision making on the project to evaluate the impact of the change before implementing it. Many changes that initially sound like good ideas will get thrown out once the true cost of the change is known. The Change Control Board (CCB) is made up of the decision makers, project manager, stakeholder, or user representatives, and selected team members. The CCB analyzes the impact of all requested changes to the software and has the authority to approve or deny any change request once development is underway. Before the project begins, the list of CCB members should be written down and agreed upon, and each CCB member should understand why the change control process is needed and what their role will be in it. Change control. Whenever a change is needed, the CCB follows the change control process to evaluate the change. The potential benefit of the change is written down and the project manager works with the team to estimate the potential impact that the change will have on the project. If the benefit of the change is worth the cost, the project manager updates the plan to reflect the new estimates. Otherwise, the change is thrown out and the team continues with the original plan. The CCB either accepts or rejects the change. Now we are learning how to write effective spaces. The effective spaces is a refresher on the framework and fundamental of spelling. Topic covered include the theory and motivation behind writing spaces, the components that make up the space, and the space reviews that fine tune the document. Here are the course goal. Teach the skills and techniques that you will need to collect relevant information about the context of a feature or set of feature, divide large feature into manageable components, develop user scenario and priorities components appropriately, write spaces with the right audience in mind, troubleshoot unmanageable spaces, prepare for an effective space review, maintain a space once development has started to code. Audience. This course is for PMs with 1 year or less of experience. Experienced PMs who want to refresh their space writing and review the skills. What we cover: what is an effective space, getting started, writing the space, reviewing and maintaining the space. The lessons we are learning in the next